I am Naresh Dadhich, and I am going to pay my tribute to Professor Govind Swarup, who recently passed away on 7th September 2020. Professor Swarup was one of the legends of Indian science, and he was the legend in the sense that he was one of the kernel peg on which the modern astronomy in India rests. Radio astronomy was one of the new sciences which was born out of the debris of the Second World War. In the Second World War, the radio communication, the radar, the microwave communication were developed, and after the war, the scientists who got together during the war suddenly found themselves that what to do next. There was very little money all around. All that was available to them was the radars which were used in the war available to them. So the imaginative amongst them got together, and from those debris of radar they built radio antennas. And that is how the radio astronomy started. Sir Martin Ryle of the Cavendish lab in Cambridge was the leader who led the group of the first radio astronomers in the world. Then it was picked up in US and other places. In India, Professor K.S. Krishnan, who was the co-discoverer of the Raman effect, when he became the director of National Physical Laboratory, rather he was invited by Jawaharlal Nehru to found a new laboratory in New Delhi. And in 1951, he went to attend at the International Conference, International Union of Radio Science. And there he listened to the most outstanding, remarkable discoveries being made by the Australian group by Joseph Parse, who were really observing the radio waves from the sun and other stars and making new discoveries. He came back, was very excited, and told the young people around him that radio astronomy is the new emerging science, and we must take it up. Govind Swarup was one of those young men around. Govind was born in a small town near Muradabad, Thakurdwar, on 23rd March 1929. He came to do the St. Xavier's College, Allahabad, for his BSc, and then he did MSc at Allahabad. And that's where Professor Krishnan was one of his teachers. After MSc, when Krishnan had already moved to NPL, he invited Govind to join him there. That's how this journey starts. In 1953, Govind was sent to Australia under the Colombo Fellowship Program for 2 years. And that is where he got introduced to the radio astronomy in a most fascinating way. When he landed in Sydney, there was another Indian student there, Patsati, and the two of them made the 2-meter 32 antennas. These were the first telescopes on which he worked. After the 2 years, just about when he was completing his tenure there, the passage group was scraping this 32 antenna thing because they were developing a much bigger new instrument. So Professor Swarup asked Pasik, could you give this instrument to us to my laboratory in Delhi? And he readily agreed that we will do that. So he wrote to Professor Krishnan, and Krishnan immediately said, yes, we would be happy to have it. But then the Australian said that we will gift you, but you have to pay for the transit, the shipment. So as the situation at that time was, the NPL was unable to pay the shipment cost. But later on it turned out, after a year or two, the Australians themselves sent the thing. But from Australia, Govind went to US. That's where he did his PhD in Stanford University, and also joined on the faculty in 1961. Then around 1963, in an astronomical union meeting, these 4 young Indian students met: Govind Swarup, T.K. Menon, and M.R. Kundu, and T. Krishna. And Govind had this idea that we all 4 should go back and start radio astronomy in India. One of his mentors in Australia has already suggested to him that you should try to build a group. So they wrote a joint letter to Atomic Energy Commission, UGC, CSIR, spelling out their intention that they would like to come back to India and start this new program of radio astronomy. The Bhabha immediately replied that yes, we are interested in building up a group in TIFR. He first sent a cable and then sent a letter that you all should come. And I can only tell you that if your group comes out to our expectation we have from you, we will have many much bigger instruments to work on. So Govind came, and immediately he asked NPL to shift to give them that 32 antennas which came from Australia, and using them with his, and it really inspired young students in TIFR. And first thing started at the Kalyan Hill. So that was the beginning. But Govind is a man of ideas. As a matter of fact, almost every breakfast he has a new idea. And there he came up with one of the most fascinating ideas. One afternoon sitting in the TIFR library to build up a big telescope which takes into account the advantage we have in India. So we wanted to build up a cylindrical parabolic arrays on a hilltop, on a hill, which has the same slope as the location of the latitude of the location of the plates, and it should be north-south, so that it, as the Earth rotates, it keeps on tracking the object beautifully. And after a lot of search, they found first thing in Ooty, and that is how the Ooty radio telescope came. And that Ooty radio telescope was a feat in itself at that time. And one of the engineers said that we were used to the accuracy of 1 foot, whereas this telescope demanded an accuracy of 1 millimeter. So this was the kind of situation. So Ooty radio telescope not only did a wonderful astronomy, so much so it was in a very healthy competition with one of the leading groups of Sir Martin Ryle of Cambridge. So everybody got inspiration in radio astronomy from Martin Ryle, but here was a young band of researchers who did the work which was, and of course the most interesting question at that time was whether the universe is governed by the Big Bang theory or whether it is governed by the steady state theory. And to answer that question, and very conclusively, they worked out that it is the Big Bang theory what the observation favored. In TIFR you had 2 groups, one led by Professor Jayant Narlikar, who was a steady state theorist, and Govind Swarup. So they had a very healthy dialogue between the 2 of them. Following success of Ooty, then Govind really thought really very big, to really have one of the largest telescopes, not one of the, rather the largest, to build the largest telescope in meter wavelengths. That is how what we call as the GMRT, Giant Meter Wave Radio Telescope, was conceived. Why meter wavelength? There are two main reasons for that. One, the technology available in the country was appropriate for a meter wavelength instrument. Second, in India was radio quiet. Mobile phones have not yet been have come up in large numbers. This was a very wise and judicious choice, which bears the stamp of Govind's ingenuity and foresight. And I did a bit of a, what we call a midwifery job for it, because when Govind was searching for a suitable site, and of course I knew him from the TIFRs and I was in the Pune University. So I helped them in the logistics at Pune. And it was wonderful to see how excited he was. And finally decided to have locate it at Khorat near Narayangam, which is by all means is the greatest feat both of engineering as well as of science. And the GMRT is really the greatest monument, one of the greatest monuments of modern Indian science. And that was, so this is the greatest gift of Govind to the Indian science. GMRT was also a trigger for creation of another important institute, Inter-University Center for Astronomy and Astrophysics, AYUCA, by Professor Jayant Narlikar. This was conceived as a vehicle to transmit excitement of new astronomy with challenging instruments like GMRT to the vast pool of students and young researchers in the universities. But before I close, I must say that Govind remained a childlike curious about science all through his life. He lived a very rich life, ever excited, always having new ideas. He came back to India from leaving his faculty position in Stanford with a nationalistic fervor. He was a school student when 1942 movement was there. And it was a generation. People were very, very committed and very excited to build a new nation. And Govind contributed to his building a new science. Thank you.